Hey everybody, welcome to the show. This is Dr. Levi with your show, The Dr. Levi Show. Today is July 31st, 2019. Beautiful here in Los Angeles. So as per usual, wherever you are, I hope you're making it a great day. Remember, live in gratitude. You are here to do great things. I really want to have a show that helps you to optimize your life. Why? Because I want you to be the best possible version of yourself. The great thing about that statement is that there's only one of you in the entire universe. How awesome is that? Because that's so wonderful, I want you to feel it, I want you to know it, and then more importantly, I want you to be it. Remember, our lives are contingent upon our thoughts. So we are what we eat, drink, smoke, and think. So don't smoke, eat properly, drink properly, and think properly. You know, my dad used to always say, Levi, be mindful of watching TV. He really hated television. He wasn't big on most media, but he'd always say, you know, I'm not going to allow you to watch any of the cartoons you want to see, blah, 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 because, you know, son, you have to understand that and always think, are you thinking your thoughts or are your thoughts thinking you? And when I was a kid, you know, now at 30 plus, well, 36 plus, I understand that now because he was always clear that, you know, if you watch something over and over, it can really change how you think. So he was really mindful about, you know, reading a book a week, no matter what, you know, doing homework, being in school, you know, how important education was. And now I get it, you know, after, you know, getting a BA, a BS, a master's, an MD, I'm really grateful I had all that education to really solidify my thinking about the power of our minds and the power of thought. Now, when it comes to our health is also, I think, as I've said before on the show, I believe of all the gifts that we get, I believe our health is first and foremost the greatest. Because when you have your health, you have your mind, and your mind, of course, can guide your body to do and be what it needs to be. And of course, what type of body do you want? Well, you want a body that is filled with great health. You want a body that is filled with happiness and less stress and less depression. And I think more importantly, I always think that with my body, I want a body that will allow me to do one thing above all, and that is to be of greater service. Because if we live a life of service, we're able to really live in the passion as well as the vocation of why we are here. We're all here for different reasons. And of course, no one is more important than anyone else. The dog walker is no more important than the doctor. The doctor is no more important than the dog walker, the teacher, or the radio host, or the entrepreneur. We all have value, intrinsic value. Not by what we have or what we achieve. We have intrinsic value by simply being human. We have value in our humanity. And that's why I think right now in a country where we're really torn with so much political and racial strife, that's really important that you really look within yourself and ask yourself, am I being kind to my neighbors? Am I calling a family member that I haven't spoken to before in many, many years, or I've never spoken to at all? Or am I still angry at someone who did something against me, 14 years ago? But you've forgotten what they did to you, but you're still angry about it. Come on, let that go. Live a life of truth, live a life of authenticity, live a life of love and forgiveness. Because in those values, I believe we really achieve the greatest and highest values of who we are, of what we can achieve, and how we can be of greater service. I think it's so true. So I challenge you to be more kind to the veterans. Those men and women are our true heroes. I challenge you to be more kind to your neighbors. I challenge you to take your neighbor's trash out when you see that and surprise them. And don't even expect to thank you. I think when we expect to thank you, the gift is not given as authentically and as freely. So I really want you to consider living a life that is filled with what I call ITY. Inner thank yous. I thank myself for being good to someone. I thank myself for waking up smiling with someone, sharing a hug, or saying how wonderful they are. Because as we talk about the beauty of other people, guess what? They also recognize the humanity that you have, and internally, you recognize your own humanity. Why? Because we all are simply a reflection of ourselves and other people. When you see another person, trust me, there's a part of you that is reflected back to you. So be kind to everyone, no matter their race, their creed, their sex, their sexuality, their gender identity, their socioeconomic level. Please, that means nothing. What does mean something is that when you see someone, that's someone's son or daughter, and they have as much value and as much worth as you do. No one is more important than anyone else. So I really want to take that I want to give you that as a take-home message for the week and really for your life. We want to live our lives in authenticity. We want to live our lives in service. We want to live our lives, and of course, my favorite word in the entire lexicon, live our life of gratitude. Because I think in gratitude we find hope, in gratitude we find service, and in gratitude we find forgiveness. And forgiveness is really the way to go. So the person that molested you, we all have our aspects in our past about people who hurt us. You know what? Forgive them. Just forgive them and get on with your life and be the best that you can. Don't carry that luggage of hate and anger and sorrow and pity and victimhood. Don't do that. Instead of victimhood, go to the other V. Go to victory. Live a life of victory. Live a life of strength. But go to that place of forgiveness. That parent who wasn't very loving, wasn't very touchy and feeling, wasn't the best hug giver. You know what? Forgive him or her. That brother or sister that no longer talks to you because they're pissed off about something that happened so long ago that you both have forgotten. Give them a call. Say, hey, I know we haven't talked for a while, but guess what? Whatever that was about, I'm sorry. Just take, it's better to be loving and kind than to be right sometimes. It truly is. It's like being in a relationship. If you really want to tamp down the fire of a relationship sometime, just say you're wrong, even if you're right. It's okay. Because out of that comes this greater desire to say that I'm going to be right because I love that person even more. So I don't even care. I want to love them and I want to be loved by them. Love is such a powerful force in the universe. Now, I want you to really reflect that. I want you to feel that. But more importantly, I want you to live and be that. Remember, the bottom line is we only treat people the way we feel we are worthy to be treated. So I want you to think about knowing that you have value, to increase your own self-worth, to feel good about yourself, and to forgive everyone. Just go forward in forgiveness, in love, in goodness, in peace, in happiness, and live a life of prosperity. These are your divine birthrights. So why not grab that off the shelf? Why not grab a little bit of wealth, a little bit of success, a little bit of happiness, a little bit of joy? And why not leave on the shelf anger, bitterness, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia? Leave those things behind, because guess what? They don't serve our greater good in humanity. They don't serve our greater platform of being the best human being that you can be. So please consider that. And I know that you can do it. I want to share one thing with you before I bring on our guest, who is amazing. She has a great story about, not a great story. She has many great stories about her life, about her patience, about how she lives a life of victory, how she lives a life of service, and how she lives a life as an intuitive, a medical intuitive. So I can't wait to talk to her. It's going to be a fascinating conversation today. Before I bring Wendy on, I want to share this with you. I've been thinking about this for the past several months. I want to start a challenge for you. We get between 15 to 3,700 emails a week. And guess what? I don't go through all of them. I go through a lot of them. My staff does, and I'm grateful for them. But I cannot do it. Think about it. It's over 12,000+ a month. I'm grateful that you listening. I'm grateful that you calling in and that you're interacting with me. But I don't answer them all. But however, I want to challenge you to do this. I want to give out an award either later this year or maybe early next year. I may do it this year. I want to call it the VOC Award. And that's the Voice of Change for 2019. I want you guys to write in either via Facebook, Instagram. You can email me. You can even call my office and leave a name. I want you to nominate someone that you think right now in America is a real voice of change. So it has to be someone that you think projects love, projects empathy, selflessness, and who has a platform of service. So I really want you to think about that. So it's going to be the voice of the Dr. Levi Show Award for the Voice of Change for 2019. I'd like to do that every year. So maybe give some money, maybe like $5,000 or $6,000 to like their charity, and then give them like a trophy or a really nice, something really like beautiful. I love things to be perfect, of course. So those are my thoughts. So let me know how you feel about it, and interact with me, and send me the nomination that you have. But I like to do that, I think, within maybe the next maybe month or two even. I was going to do it every year, and I think I can. So let's do that over the next month or so. Send me your thoughts, and I want to bring someone in and tell them, hey, you got this Voice of Change Award for 2019. All right. Now, with that said, I want to read this name to you, because I want you to write it down right now, because this name is going to help you in your life, and I want you to reach out to her. I want you to interact with her. I want you to call her. I want you to go to her for care. So you ready? Write this down. WENDICOLTER. I want you to call Wendy. You know how you remember that song? You got to call Tyrone. Well, guess what? You got to call Wendy. Wendy's a certified, and I want to read this, a certified medical intuitive. And I happened to meet her at a medical practice recently, and we had a chance to talk a little bit. And when she said what she did, I immediately, I'm sure my eyes got big as dollars, as dollar bill coins, basically, because I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, that would be great. So I was able to move around, and I want to thank the guest that I was able to move. I want to thank her for doing that. But I've just felt after I met Wendy, her energy was so, for me, very calming, but at the same time, it was very nourishing. I thought, you know what? I'd like to share her story with America. And guess what? I didn't know her full story. I just felt when I met her, when she said, guess what I do? I thought, fantastic. I said, I'd like to have you on the show to talk about this, because I think anyone that has a voice that's internal about how to help other people, I want to bring them on this platform so that they can help you, because guess what? Having her on the show will also help me to be a better me, to be a better man, to be a better physician, to be a better speaker, to be of greater service. So Wendy, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm so happy to be here, Dr. Levi. Thank you so much for having me. What a thrill.
Absolutely. It's really great to have you on. As a medical intuitive, what I really want to talk about a little bit is, where are you from? Mm-hmm. And I want to hear about what family life was for you when you were growing up, and was there anyone else in your family who also has the gift of being a medical intuitive?
What a great question. I grew up here in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And my family didn't talk about intuition. It wasn't a discussion, but it was also not discouraged in terms of the creative process of what intuition is.
Yes.
My mother is an artist, so she liked creativity, and she encouraged that in the kids. So actually, this is kind of a longer story. It turns out that one of my mother's best friends was a woman who worked with a very important research scientist who was developing remote viewing for the CIA. I'm going to tell you a story I don't usually tell.
Yes, well, thank you for sharing.
And this woman was like an aunt to me, and she worked with him. And when I asked my mother about these ESP cards we used to play with as kids, those ESP cards, you might be too young for that.
I don't remember those, but share
I think she
share
brought
with
them
me
into the house.
Really?
But what that is a little game, and the game is you have a set of cards with a bunch of symbols on them,
yes.
And one person looks at the symbol of like a star,
yes.
And you try to beam that to somebody else.
Oh, to think about what it is. Oh, I got it. Yes.
So my growing up years were full of fun games about perception.
Yes.
And then, do you want to hear the whole?
Oh, I definitely want to hear
the whole story.
Definitely.
Okay, good. I was always interested in things like this. I was always interested in perception and intuition. And let me just say that many of your listeners can relate to this. Children are usually very adept at something, or they have an interest in something.
Yes.
Sports, art, math, whatever.
Right.
Most of the time, when a child is interested in intuition or intuitive perception, what happens to the child? They get shushed.
Yes.
A lot.
Yes.
Because we don't have a context for intuition or intuitive development in our society.
Right.
Luckily didn't get shushed, but I was also not encouraged because there really isn't a school for that for children.
Yes, yes.
So as I grew up, I had a lot of different experiences that helped me develop this. Just random, fun things that I used to do because they were fun games. So I'll give you kind of the milestones along the
Absolutely.
way. At one point, a dear friend of mine was working with Louise Hay. And
I love Louise Hay. I have her books. She's very amazing.
She wrote a book called You Can Heal Your Body, I think, which is a phenomenal, seminal work in mind-body medicine.
Yes.
And she asked, my friend said, you've got to see what this woman is doing. This was in the 80s, mid-80s.
Yeah, she was a trailblazer.
Yeah, and I was, a younger person, but my friend knew I was interested in this. And she was having meetings in her living room with the AIDS community in Los Angeles.
Yes.
So this was early on.
Right.
And that was the first time I ever had an experience of using energy or intention, mind-body intention for healing.
Yes.
So that was a real important moment for me to see that something here is going on. And you can really you can use your mind and visualization skill and intention to affect a change.
Yes.
So all of this was part of my education. I read Deepak Chopra's book called Quantum Healing. You must have read that.
Yes, I've read that also. Yes,
Isn't that
I have.
a fabulous
book?
book?
It is amazing.
Yes, and in this
He's
book,
amazing, actually.
Oh, an amazing man, and always worth hearing speak. So what he says in his book is he helped his patients heal tumors and diseases by using visualization.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's fascinating. And not long after that, my body developed a little tumor.
Did it really?
It did. Huh. And it was a benign tumor. So I wasn't worried about it.
Yes.
But when I went to the doctor, she said, well, let's remove that just to be on the safe side, as you do.
Right.
And I said, well, I read this book where you can use your mind to heal your body. What do you think?
What did the doctor say? I'm curious about that.
She looked at me like I had, antenna and 3 heads.
Oh, really?
I was from Mars. Why wouldn't she, right?
Right.
But she said, well, you know what? I don't think it'll hurt.
Right.
So go ahead.
Yes, yes.
And what happened was there was a little 2-week window between that appointment and our pre-op.
Yes.
And she said, do whatever you want, kid. And I said, okay. So I was meditating at the time. I did transcendental meditation,
yes,
a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful meditation technique. And at the end of my meditation, I did what Dr. Chopra wrote in his book. And he said, get a visual that makes you happy, that shows you can see the effect happening.
Yes.
So I used the image of scrubbing bubbles.
Right.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
I mean, just a ridiculous thing, a little cartoon.
Right.
But it made me laugh just like that.
Right.
And I thought, well, why not?
Yes.
So for 2 weeks, for just a few minutes, I used scrubbing bubbles in my mind and saw that little tumor dissolving, right? And when I went in for the exam, I hear my doctor gasp, and I'm thinking, I'm dead, right? This is over.
You're right. What's going on?
We're done. Right. And she said, what did you do? She said, it went from the size of about a nickel to the size of a pea. And it was dysplasia. It wasn't going to do that. It wasn't going to be that kind of thing.
Right.
And that was one of those moments in life where you go, okay, I've proven it to myself.
Yes.
So what does this mean for me?
Yes.
Right. And from that point, I was very, very interested in energy work, energy medicine, mind-body medicine. It was just a fascinating subject for me.
That's a fascinating story because it happened to you, so it's a first-person story.
Yeah.
You're not telling the story of someone else's healing.
Yes.
It's you telling this incredible anecdote about what happened to you, how you changed your life. And I love hearing that because, first and foremost, I'm a scientist. I'm an electrical engineer. I'm a physician, but I'm a Western trained doctor. So I'm always thinking about the science involved.
Yeah.
However, what I'm finding now is I brought my own base of understanding and thinking and really just enlightenment. There are so many other modalities to heal the body.
Yes.
And the mind is really premier.
Well, the mind is everything.
It really is.
And there's so much research on that fact. And if any of your listeners want to look up mind-body medicine research, they can go to pubmed.com.
Right.
And there's so much out there. And these are medical papers, peer-reviewed research studies. which is wonderful. So we're seeing more and more of this, and it's being more and more accepted that we have a biofield, which is a chakra and energy system, and that our mind-body connection is actually really real.
It definitely
and it
is.
helps people heal.
And what are your thoughts about I talk about this with my patients often, the power of prayer when it comes to healing oneself and healing one's family and their family members or their pets. I'd like to hear your thoughts about that.
Well, it's beautiful, and that's also been documented.
Yes.
Prayer. But prayer is the same, almost the same. I mean, it's the same concept.
Right.
Put it
As
that
meditation?
Way. As meditation, as directed thought, as intention, as focus,
Yes.
as mind-body technique.
Yes.
It's all from the same, I would say, family.
Right.
Because what we're talking about here, and we're going to get right into the quantum here.
Yeah, I want to go there. I want to go there with you. Definitely.
We're talking about really the quantum field.
Yes.
Now, I'm not an expert in this.
Mm-hmm.
Deepak Chopra, Dr. Chopra, and many others are way more expert at this than me. But when I do my work,
Yes.
it's very much about tapping into that field, you could say, so that I can view your physical body and your life circumstances and whatever else is in your field
Exactly.
that is might be out of balance
Yes.
for your health and wellness.
Right.
And that's really, in a nutshell, medical intuition. Yeah.
Very intriguing.
Yeah.
Now, when did you first make the decision that, hey, I'm actually going to become a medical intuitive? What was the spark that, was it a class that you took? Was it someone that you met? Was it something that you wanted to do for yourself? But where did that come from? Because this is a major life step to tell someone openly without any feeling of self-compromise that, yes, I'm a medical intuitive. Because some people may have shame associated with that or a sense of less than, which is unfortunate because, again, every job has great value. It really
I'll
does.
answer that in two ways.
Yes.
First of all, let me just set the stage, and that is what I said earlier, is that we don't have a context for intuition in this country. In other countries, there might be.
Yes.
But in this country, it's very much thought of with suspicion, with doubt, with skepticism,
right.
even with fear, on and on. And it's just because people don't understand what it is.
Right.
Intuition is natural. We're all born with it.
Absolutely.
And it's a question of whether or not you choose to cultivate it.
Right.
But we have words in our language that are very valued, and one of those words is gut feeling.
Of course.
Hunch,
Yes.
right? Even
Right.
compassion is an energetic, intuitive state.
I agree with that. I
so
agree.
we really do have an understanding of it, but we don't talk about it. Kids can't go to intuition school. You
Right.
can't go to intuition college yet.
Right.
My program, yes, but it's not quite understood yet. And I
Right.
hope that as things move forward, this will emerge.
I hope it emerges even more in the medical community because I think, medical intuition has incredible value.
Yes.
Incredible value.
Well, that's my soapbox here. we can
it's the
talk about.
truth.
I teach, and
Yes.
I want to answer your other question
Yes.
too, but I teach medical intuition at healthcare centers to clinicians.
Yes.
And that's such a privilege. I'll be teaching this year at Dr. Andrew Weil's Center in Tucson. I taught last
Fantastic.
year. And I'm teaching fourth-year medical students.
Right.
And I also teach a lot of nurses and mental health care and certainly people from the energy field world, energy healing and
Yes.
whatnot. So these are professionals who want to use medical intuition to help get to the root causes of the issues their patients and clients have.
Right.
And that's the value of it.
Yes, it is.
It's a foundational skill
Yes.
rather than a modality.
Yes.
So, I'm going to forget your question. You said, how did I know I wanted to be one?
Exactly.
Okay, so this is interesting.
Right.
I didn't.
Really?
I became an energy healer because I was fascinated by the whole idea of mind, body, and energy work.
Yes.
And I studied at a school which is we used to be here in LA, and I did all their programs, energy healing, the whole 9 yards. I became a minister. They taught ministerial,
Yes.
and I became a teacher there.
Yes.
And one of the programs they had was a skill called Clairvoyance. Now that name really kind of can sound pretty woo-woo, but what it means is clear. The word clair is clear from
Exactly.
French. Voyance means visualization,
Exactly.
right? To
see
view.
clear. Mhm.
So what was interesting about that is as an energy healer, I was already seeing into the body
Right.
because of all of the perception games I played in my youth and up through my life. I
Right.
just tried things with visualization. So I noticed that even before I studied clairvoyance, I could see the rib cage and I could see
Yes.
the heartbeat.
You could see those
what's
things.
happening.
Yes. Yes.
And I noticed that other people weren't actually doing that.
Right.
And the clairvoyance training was not about that. It wasn't about medical stuff at all, but it helped develop that muscle a little bit more.
Yes. How did you feel as that was happening? Did you have fear about, oh, I'm actually seeing things, or feeling things, or hearing things? You know, because you be clairaudient also.
Yes.
That are not, other people are not seeing or hearing or experiencing. How was that for you initially?
Well, that's a lifelong thing, and most intuitives of any kind, clairaudient, clairsentient, whatever,
yes,
has an experience of, well, this must be something different because other people might not have that.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. When I was probably around 6 or 7 years old, I think back and I think, oh, that was my first memory of clairaudience.
Yes.
I was driving in the car with my mother, and I was humming a song in my head. And I said to my mom, hey, Mom, turn the radio on. There's a song I like that's playing, a song of the day.
Yes.
And she turned it on, and there it was, right where I was humming it in my head. Now, that's a clairaudient experience.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
But I thought everybody could do that. I was 6 or 7, right?
Right, right.
So it ends up...
What did your mom think about that?
She didn't think at all. With kids, whatever,
Oh, right.
And I didn't say, that's where I was thinking.
Right.
But I noticed that I could do that, like, what's that about?
Right.
I didn't think about it till much later when I started sort of thinking about all the intuitive experiences I'd had.
Right.
And all of that leads up to... when I began to study energy healing, and I'm not alone, a lot of energy healers, and your listeners will also say, yes, I get these hits, I get these flashes.
Right.
You probably do in your practice.
Oh, always.
Always. And that's the very common intuitive experience, is to get a flash, a flash, a flash.
Yes.
Medical intuition, the way I found myself naturally doing it, was a much more deliberate way to ask a question of the body and get an answer.
Yes.
Or visually see what I'm asking about.
Right.
And that is really the skill of medical intuition. So I noticed, to answer your original question,
Yes.
that all of my colleagues, my energy healing colleagues, were sending me their tough cases.
Yes.
I noticed that doctors were hearing about me and calling me and saying, hey, can you look at this?
Right,
Don't use my name.
Right.
Can you look at this?
Right.
And I noticed that the educational opportunity in the country was not there.
Correct.
There's a huge gap in medical care. Intuition is not, and you went to medical school.
Yes,
did
I
they
did.
tell you a little bit about gut feelings?
Oh, we never spoke about that.
Okay, well, you get it now.
Well, I got it before that. I got it from my family, so I've
there you
always
go.
lived in that gap.
Yeah.
Right.
Some medical schools will address this.
Right.
And they'll say, if you have a feeling about something, a hunch, a gut feeling, follow up on it.
Right.
Nurses, let me tell you, they get trained in this. They're trained to see or sense or whatever.
Right.
If a patient looks off or they get a sense about it or a gut feeling about it, they're trained to tell the doctor, and the doctor may or may not pay attention.
Right, but they can still say it.
But they are extremely intuitive.
Yeah, very.
For that reason. And so you asked me why I wanted to teach this. Well,
Yes.
I developed my programs for a couple of reasons. Number one is because of all the work that I was doing, I saw the need for the clients. They didn't know where to go for answers, and many people fall outside of diagnostic norms.
Absolutely.
Right? And so what this is, medical intuition can help them with information they can take to their doctor.
Yes.
And say, how about this? How about that?
Right.
It's very valuable.
Very.
The other thing is for the doctors and the clinicians and the people who are actually doing the work, this is a big missing piece.
I agree with you.
That's all I
For
can say.
many.
It's like, for the doctors to use this, and now doctors are, I've trained many MDs,
Right.
many diagnosticians,
Right.
and they're using it and finding that they're getting to the root of the issue for their patient. They're getting to things that they might not have gotten to through, not traditional channels.
Exactly.
Even more so. And it's very exciting. And I'll tell you where it's really taken hold. In the integrative medicine community,
Which is fantastic.
and the functional medicine community.
Right.
2 words for something similar, which is MDs, NDs, mental health,
Yes.
looking at all of the available treatments, protocols, whatnots out
Right.
there,
Yes.
which don't fall under traditional Western medicine.
Right.
So this is a very exciting time.
I think it's fantastic. In my practice, I think it's so important to use different modalities that are not, quote unquote, the norm. So I think they should be the norm, though. From acupuncture
Yes.
to, chiropractic care. I think all of these modalities have great value.
Yes.
However, they're really underused, underappreciated, and not understood well enough for people to say, you know what, let me call the chiropractor, let me call the acupuncturist. I have 2 great acupuncturists in my practice, and they're like, I call them my fairy godmothers. Yes. They come in, they're like floating, and they're so energetically balanced and sound that they have the energy to share with other people and to balance their energies. Now, I want to ask you also, what did your parents think about you choosing this as a career? And our brothers and sisters, I want to hear about them. And do you have any brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a brother and 2 sisters. And, my father, who passed away not too long ago, used to say, I used to tell him things like, he'd say, are you going to play the lottery? Or something would come up.
Right.
And I'd say, Dad, I'm only going to play the lottery when I know I can win.
Right.
And he'd say to me, only you would say that. And you know what? You would win.
Right, exactly.
And what that means is they recognized the value of the development of intuition that I had just naturally done.
Yes.
And so, for my family, listen, it's more about in my career. I've had 2 careers. This is my second career.
Yes.
My first career was in music, not surprisingly, being a kid who heard music.
Right, and being a creative.
And in the creative. And I was in the corporate music world for a long, long time. Right. And also as a creative artist. It was great fun. I'm sure you looked me up on Google.
Oh, yeah. We were going through everything.
What is this person doing?
I thought it was fantastic, though, because it shows all these different avenues that you went through, and then finally said, okay, I love that, and I'm good at this and this. However, I feel my vocation and my gifts are to do this. I think that's the power, when you can make those decisions like that. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you. And let me tell you what turned the corner for me. It's actually something I really want to talk about. I was doing a lot of healing work. I knew that I wanted to teach what I was doing, which I didn't see out there easily accessible.
Yes.
And I knew I wanted to teach healthcare providers because I thought that's going to change the paradigm.
Right.
I had a client come to me. Actually, I can tell you a few client stories, but you asked about when things really changed for me.
When was that?
Yeah, I'll tell you when it was. A young woman who, an aspiring actress here in Los Angeles,
Yes.
we have so many of them.
Yes.
Beautiful, waif-like young woman. And she'd had kidney pain in her back, upper back, for, many, many months. And she'd taken all the tests. This was about 15 or so years ago. She'd taken all the tests. She'd been to specialists. Nobody could find the problem. And in one session, really in the first 10 minutes, when I viewed her physical body, I saw there was a almost microscopic, very, very small kidney stone that had come out of the kidney and stuck itself in the ureter tube, which is the tube that goes down to the bladder.
Exactly.
For your listeners.
Yes.
And it wasn't budging. So my job as a medical and by the way, it was too small for the test to pick up at the time.
Oh, really? Ultrasound didn't pick
under
it up.
2 millimeters. It was
Wow.
tiny, but she felt it.
Right.
Right. And it wasn't going to go. So I'm talking to her kidney, saying,
Right, yes.
what needs to happen here?
Yes.
And her kidney said, this needs a surgical intervention. That's actually what her kidney literally said to me and showed me that this is what it needs, and that she's in such distress and there was such pain going on. Now, here's the thing. Her doctors, when they couldn't find any conclusions, what do you think they did?
More tests?
No.
Did they call you?
No. They called it psychosomatic.
Oh, no,
This
it's
is-
not psychosomatic, though.
But they couldn't find an answer.
Right.
So she came to see me after all this. They called it psychosomatic, and they gave her opioids because she was obviously in pain.
Right.
And they gave her antidepressants because she was,
Yeah, stressed out
couldn't
about it
even
all.
go to an audition.
Right.
So when I saw her, I'm like, okay, this is actually real. This is what's happening.
Right.
And I drew her a picture, and I said, please, find a surgeon or find a specialist here that's willing to do a deeper look, because there's really you're not imagining this. It's
Right.
not psychosomatic. And she thanked me, and I didn't hear what happened to her for about 2 years or so.
Right.
And I found out later that she had found a surgeon who was willing to do an exploratory, willing to find out.
Really?
And they did the surgery. She was out of pain for the first time in all those months. Now here's the what really made a difference for me.
Yes.
Is that she was so addicted to the opioids by that time that she turned to heroin, and she died of an overdose, Dr.
wow.
Levi.
Wow.
And that is, I mean,
That's
this happened
wow.
like around a little over 15 years ago, and that young woman, who was an angel now,
very much so.
and should never have had that outcome.
No,
I mean,
never.
imagine if her doctors knew about me,
Exactly.
could call me, or any other medical intuitive, if they were medical intuitives,
Correct.
if they had someone on staff that could take a look when tests are inconclusive,
Right.
patients have symptoms that are atypical. My goodness, that goes on way more than people
A
think.
lot.
What could have happened? And that was a moment for me where I said, okay, this has to be in the public. People have to know about it. Doctors need to be trained in it.
Right.
And so here I am,
Right.
training doctors.
No, I think it's great. There's another medical intuitive I've spoken to before who's great. He's in Arizona also. His name is Dr. Faith. And just a great, great, great person. I've had him on the show when I was at another station, and he was just incredible insights about life and about people and about the need to really have people understand that this is a valid modality to help people get better and to find the answer.
Well, I'll even give you more. It's not a modality. It's a a foundational skill.
I believe that.
Because
I agree with
any
you.
modality can use it.
True. That's a true
And
statement.
it can support any mode. It can support
Right.
allopathic medicine, complementary alternative medicine,
Homeopathic medicine.
homeopathic. I
Right.
teach naturopathic. I
Right.
teach all of those people.
Right.
And mental health care.
Absolutely.
And in mental health care, if you don't mind me,
Oh, let's definitely talk about it.
what a medical looking at the physical body is half the job. That's what I say.
Yes.
I tell my students this. You also have to look at the underlying causes, meaning the life experience.
Absolutely.
And when you look at that, you can see the whole picture, why something manifested in a certain way.
Right.
And that idea that your life experience can create a physical manifestation of an imbalance,
Right.
it doesn't belong to medical intuition alone. That is really the thought from not only the energy work field, but also from the research we're seeing from ACEs. You know ACEs?
I do know ACEs, yes.
I'm going to forget what that stands for.
It stands for...
Adverse childhood experiences. Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, meaning if you've had trauma in your childhood, and many, if not most of us have,
Correct.
some kind of trauma, that can set up some kind of patterning that can lead to a physical, if not emotional, imbalance later in life.
Right.
And they're finding correlation with cancer,
I
with
believe that.
respiratory issue,
Right.
obesity,
Right.
and they're going to find more.
Oh, yeah. I think they're going to find traits with that will... There's one thing that people have that I see in my practice ever so often. Whenever when someone tells me that, I think, okay, what can I do to really help him or her?
Yeah.
Whenever here they have, it's called it's myalgia. It's polymyalgia, or they'll say they have, it's another... They call it an autoimmune, but it's really not autoimmune.
Autoimmune is an interesting term.
Oh, yes, very interesting term. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, I think, well, everything is autoimmune. It's my system. It's internal. It's my immune system doing what it needs to do. Polymyalgia, rheumatica.
Yeah, sure.
Whenever I hear people say that, I think, okay. In my mind, okay, what can I do to help you not think you have that? Or when someone says, I have cancer, I say, well, let's not say you have it. Let's say that you have a challenge of cancer and that we're going to help you to see the greater and better you.
Well, now you're talking about shifting your thoughts in
Correct.
your mind to have, whatever positive effect is possible on your body.
Absolutely.
And, that's where I come from with
Yes.
all this. But medical intuition is a different kind of a view.
Mm-hmm.
But we are looking to see where people's patterns of thinking are, for
Yes.
sure, to see how that could be affecting their
lives or
and
their bodies.
Experience,
Mm-hmm.
their life experience.
So let's hear about this. So when someone comes to you, give us like a synopsis of what happens when you take their H&P, when you take their history and physical, and
we don't do
and when
that.
you right exactly. Yeah,
We don't do that.
When you look at them and you talk to them, I want to hear about what's the format that you go through to come to that place. Okay, this is what you believe is happening, and this is what I believe will help you. I want to hear about that.
Well, I'm happy to give you another case report. If
Sure,
you like,
I'd love to hear it.
Great.
I think these are fascinating.
This particular case report I like to talk about because it's a great example of how medical intuition works, the way I practice it, and the way I teach it.
Yes.
Now, I don't know how many thousands of medical intuitives out there. All may have their own way to do this.
Yes.
But this is the way I do it, and it's a very methodical process. This was a client who, in her mid-40s, very successful businesswoman. She had kind of a very stubborn case of tendinitis in her wrist.
Yes.
Now, tendinitis takes time to go away.
Oh, it can.
You can always re-injure yourself, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
She'd had it for about a month. And she said to me, will you just look at this? I'm like, sure, I'll look at it for you.
Right.
And so I looked at it. Now, how I view the body is very much like looking at a functional MRI. So any of your listeners who had an MRI, you know what it looks like. It's the inside of your body.
Absolutely.
Right? But this is functional, meaning I can see it moving, I can see it working, I can see where it's not working,
right.
that sort of thing. And often in color.
Right. I think it's very intriguing.
And that's part of that visual skill.
Yes.
And so I looked at her wrist, and I saw the inflamed tendons, definitely there. And underneath the tendons in the bones of the wrist, I saw there was a bone scar, like a healed fracture.
Really?
And the second way, just so you know, and also I saw around the wrist kind of a cloud of emotion. And
yes.
It looked like emotional heartbreak and emotional pain.
Yes.
So that was all in her wrist there. Now, I'm not just looking at, remember I said we look at the life history?
Right.
It's a lot like looking at a little 3D movie of your life. Literally, I'm just going to wrist,
like
show me what you got to say, right?
Just like that.
Just like that.
Wow.
And up pops a visual, a little movie of her at age 21 playing tennis with her boyfriend. She swung her racket, she tripped and fell, and that was what that wrist break was. She broke her wrist.
Yes, yes.
Now, the next thing her wrist wanted to show me was her in the hospital room getting her wrist taped up and her boyfriend breaking up with her in the emergency room.
Really?
Yeah. So what it was...
That really happened?
That happened. She corroborated it.
Wow.
So, and that's the skill.
Wow.
So what her wrist was saying was, showing me, was that not only was it holding on to this physical fracture pain, but it was also holding on to this emotional pain of this heartbreak. And at that point, my client said, yes, I remember that happening, and guess what? I'm going through an emotional breakup right now with my partner I've been with for 10 years.
Wow.
And I said, well, when did that breakup start? And she said, about a month ago, just before the tendinitis flared up.
That's very intriguing.
And that is what we see over and over again with, that is, the body understands this. And it makes connections that logically we wouldn't make. Now, let me tell you, there's more to the story.
Yes, yes.
The next thing her wrist wanted me to see was an image of her around 5 years old. And it looked like she was in a dark closet. And she was holding that same wrist up, what looked like for protection, and a cane or stick coming down, hitting her right here.
Yes.
And it was a lot of emotion and pain and a lot of, all of that.
Yes, yes.
And what she told me at that moment was, she said, well, my mother was mentally ill. She used to beat me with her cane and lock me in a closet. Wow. Intense.
That is
now,
intense.
What I found fascinating about this was that her wrist, the same area, was not just holding on to the 21-year-old issue or the current issue. It was holding a lifetime of emotional pain, physical trauma, grief. And all of that was being activated in this current life situation.
Right. Even from 5 years old.
Even from 5 years old. Now, here's what's interesting here is that she remembered it. She knew that.
Right.
She had a conscious awareness of age 5. When I mentioned the 21, she said, oh, yeah, I remember that. Right. And our minds wouldn't put that together to create tendinitis, would they?
No.
Why would we? It's not logical.
Right.
But to the body, it's logical.
Uh-huh.
And our bodies have an internal logic about them that is fascinating to look at. Now, I checked in with her a couple days later. I said, how are you doing? And she said, it's gone.
So what was the remedy? Is the remedy about that having the knowingness of what the root cause is? When you know the root cause, then you change your thinking about it? Do you give her affirmations to help mitigate that?
Right.
How's the healing for that?
So what she told me in that follow-up phone call was, it's gone, it's as if it never was. Wow. And most importantly, what she said is, I feel like I'm able to handle the emotions of this breakup, because she was really not handling them well. And she said, I'm feeling better about everything right now. I think I can handle it. So that is an interesting, that doesn't always happen, but here's the key here, and this is, I think, what you're asking. Awareness. Awareness, in my view, is everything. And Dr. Dean Ornish has my favorite quote. He says, awareness is the first step in healing. And that is really the focus of medical intuition. It's not a modality to treat.
Right.
It is a function, it's a skill to bring to awareness whatever's out of balance so that you can get the right treatment. Now, for her, when I asked her wrist, what does it need?
Yes.
Her wrist said, she's doing everything. It needs, a bandage and some ice, but this is emotional, and that's why all this emotional stuff, I'm showing you all this emotional stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, I just told her what I saw, and it had a wonderful effect.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, but that's typical.
Right.
That's a typical experience. Maybe not the healing part so much, because everybody has free will about that, but the finding the awareness part.
Right. But also it's incredible for you to be able to have the vision of what the root causes were. At 21, the breakup, the fall with the tennis racket. At 5, the beating in the closet with the cane. Being, to have that type of perspective, I think that's pretty phenomenal.
Well, that's what I teach, Dr. Levi, and I teach that to clinicians and people in the complementary and integrative field, and they're learning it and they're using it. Can I give you some statistics?
I definitely like to hear. I also want to hear. What. Okay, I want to know this. If someone does not believe that they can become a medical intuitive, are they able to still take a class and even still benefit from it if they don't believe? Because I would say they should still benefit from it even if they don't believe it. It's real. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, here's the thing. I tested this hypothesis here.
Yes.
And I taught my wonderful husband some years ago. I said, honey, we've been married, for 14 years, and it's time for you to do this program. And he supported me the whole time. He is not a spiritual. He wouldn't consider himself intuitive.
Right,
None
right.
of that. He's from Australia, so he's, pragmatic fellow.
Yes, yes.
And he took both levels. It's a 2-level program.
Right.
And he was brilliant at it. He doesn't believe, it's not like something he has to believe in, but he was phenomenal at it. And partly because he didn't really care.
right.
But also because anyone can learn this skill. And I said, I need to know that anyone can learn this skill.
Right.
How about you? And he's like, sure. And he was brilliant at it. So the answer to your question is you do not have to believe. So if there are people out there that are thinking, this would really be useful for my practice, you don't have to be into spirituality. It's a very methodical step-by-step practice.
Right.
And you'll find that you're working a muscle. Now, so the skill, learning this skill is similar to learning a new language.
Right.
So, and we're learning how to work a new muscle.
Absolutely.
It takes practice. It takes time to master the skill. And you get a lot of practice. That's the whole point.
I think it's really phenomenal.
I'd be happy to teach you.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to be happy to learn. I want to know, how can people contact you and connect with you? Can you just tell our viewers how they can reach you?
Sure.
Either via email, Instagram, Facebook, phone number, website.
I can. Can I
any information that you want?
First?
Of course, anything.
I just want to give you some statistics here, if that's
sure,
okay.
Absolutely.
Now, the medical intuitives that I've trained, and these are acupuncturists and doctors and nurses and whatnot, last year we did a survey, and I think, like you, science is critically important. We must have scientific proof, and we must have evidence-based.
Peer-reviewed cases.
Peer-reviewed, all of that. And there haven't been peer-reviewed research for medical intuition yet. So I'm excited about this. So I want to share.
I'm excited for you. Yes.
So last year we did a research study with a survey with patients that the medical intuitive graduates had not met before.
Yes.
We worked with a cohort of patients from UCSD who are very hard to diagnose.
Right.
And they wanted to be involved. And we worked with 67 respondents. And the survey numbers we got back were phenomenal. And I'll share those with you.
I want to hear that.
We had a 94% success agreement that the medical intuitive accurately located their primary physical issue without knowing anything ahead of time.
Really?
Yep. We had a 98% agreement that they agreed that the medical intuitive was able to accurately describe life experiences that might corroborate with their issue. Yeah, so they saw a connection.
Wow.
Now, here's the statistic I really love.
Yes.
About half, 49% of these respondents had a known medical diagnosis from their healthcare provider. 94% of them said the medical intuitive was consistent with the diagnosis. Now these are huge numbers.
Huge numbers.
And I'd known that our numbers were good, anecdotally.
But that's pretty phenomenal.
We wanted to see it on paper, excuse me.
Right. That's all right. With that type of specificity and sensitivity, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Even the cohort is not huge, 66, in value.
It's not big.
It's still not, but however, the accuracy, the sensitivity and specificity of the study, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Now, those graduate students of mine had been reading for and doing this work for less than a year.
Wow.
They just completed their certification, which is approximately 9 months to a year.
Wow.
So there you go. You can learn it, you can use it.
You can use it.
So I took those figures to Dr. Paul Mills, who is a wonderful, he's actually the chief of family medicine at the UCSD School of Medicine. That's University of California, San Diego.
Yes.
And he's also the director of research for the Deepak Chopra Center. So he gets this.
Yeah, he's invested.
Yes. And he said, let's do a gold standard study on medical intuition, the first groundbreaking study. It's never been done before.
Wow.
And he set up a proposal. We are seeking funding for it, if I may say that.
That's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, and because these things are not inexpensive to do.
No, not at all.
But we're really hoping to get this going this year and have the results next year. And it would really pretty much change the paradigm,
absolutely.
I would think.
And I think, when it comes to understanding about what is medical intuition, I think that paradigmatic shift has to happen. And I think it's going to happen globally, organically, but it will happen. Yeah. Now, how can people reach you, Wendy?
Yes. So my website is thepracticalpath.com. www.thepracticalpath.com, and there's contact information there. I also have a Facebook page, The Practical Path, on Twitter, but I'm not on there as much as Facebook. So please join in. There's a newsletter you can join as well. We'd be happy to send that to you with blogs and articles and upcoming events and all that. And by the way, I have a lot of students that are doing their graduate work that need to work with clients, and these would be free to them, free to the clients. So we have people who are finishing their certification, so they would love to hear from you too.
That's fantastic. I want to thank Wendy for being here. The Practical Path. You have to reach out to her. Just fascinating conversation. I can't wait to have her back on the show. I'm always amazed, and I always feel very grateful when I'm speaking to someone that I just feel like I can just absorb more and more knowledge to be just a better version of myself. So I really want to thank Wendy for being with us today. I hope you really enjoyed her as much as I did, and I'm sure you did. And I can't wait to get your feedback about the show. And go out and be kind, be loving, be empathetic, and be the best version of yourself. And remember, as I say all the time, be really wonderful to the veterans. Those great women and men who have served this country really deserve to be treated with great respect, love, kindness, and humanity. This is Dr. Levi. Go out and be good and do good. Remember, the world is waiting for you. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.